So more retrenchments are looming as companies look to cut spending. Corporates are feeling the pinch as they battle to sustain turnover. But is retrenching workers the right business decision? Joining me from our Cape Town studio to discuss this is Labour consultant Tony Healy from Tony Healy and Associates. Tony, very good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time. So I suppose the big question is to retrench or not to retrench?
Well, look, in certain circumstances, retrenchment is very necessary, and there are other circumstances where there are other solutions, such as working short time, which does often happen in organizations, or even to defer the timing of retrenchment. So depending on the circumstances, there may or may not need to be a retrenchment process.
We've heard reasons for retrenchments from the likes of MultiChoice, Standard Bank, the mining industry also having its own negotiations as far as these retrenchments are concerned. Listening to some of the reasoning that's been put forward, do you get the sense that the South African labour market is being creative as to how to handle what are tough economic times and indeed the needs of labour?
Well, I think it's difficult in certain circumstances. You know, we're dealing with a wave of digital self-service progress as far as technology is concerned. So you'll see a lot of the DSTVs, the MultiChoices of the world and the like, call centres, industries that can be digitized, if you like. So they are under particular pressure. But, you know, there are other broader issues at play here. As recently as this week, for example, the chief economist at the IMF was saying it doesn't follow necessarily that because there's a fourth industrial revolution that jobs need especially be under pressure. We've had 4 industrial revolutions, and if you look right now, for example, in the US, they have the lowest unemployment rate that they've had in decades.
And let's talk about that apparent failure to evolve or keep up with the times on the part of some industries. It seems rather unfair that it would be the staff that has to pay the ultimate price for a company failing to keep up with the times.
Look, that is unfortunate. You know, there's a sense that, if you like, that organizations could do more to update and differentiate in terms of the kinds of skills that they develop within their parameters. But, you know, there's only so much they can do. Technology is advancing at such a level, and pressure is on. And, of course, there are broader issues. There is economic uncertainty. There is policy uncertainty at a global level. There's the question of Brexit, the impact that could have globally, the impact of US-China tariff progression. So, you know, all of those things, all of those factors do ultimately bring themselves to bear on local employers.
And a lot of this tension, Tony, that's likely to come from these planned retrenchments will see a confrontation between the companies and unions. What impact is that going to have on an economy that's already battling, as we've seen so far this year?
Look, we have an enormously high, we all know that we have an enormously high unemployment rate in this country, 6th or 7th highest in the world, where approximately 4 out of 5 economically South Africans are unemployed. And there's no doubt whatsoever that there's going to be great tension between organised labour and employers in the face of these mounting retrenchments. The fact of the matter is, however, that our Labour Relations Act is structured in such a way that if employers follow certain procedural steps, there's really no reason why they can't ultimately go ahead and action those retrenchments, notwithstanding the fact, of course, it has an enormous social impact on the country.
What becomes, just lastly, Tony, of these people who are already facing retrenchments, these thousands of South Africans who are facing retrenchments? We heard earlier this year that unemployment in the first quarter was just above 27%. Half of the youth in this country sitting without jobs. So these people who lose their jobs in this round of retrenchments, what are the chances that they'll be able to find their way back into the labour system and find work?
Look, the reality is it's going to be very difficult for them. You know, that many of them don't have the skills that are required in the economy of today. You know, job prospects look very, very poor. What one could say to someone who was perhaps in that kind of situation is to try and identify the skills that are increasingly in demand and upskill oneself where possible, and if not, turn to the, turn to your entrepreneurial spirit, and no matter how small scale that is, try and become self-employed, be it on a small retail basis or the broad number of ways that ingenious ways that people are identifying to put food on the table.
Right, Labour consultant Tony Healy, thank you so much for your time.